Thank you so much to everybody who has joined. I see us all chatting away there in the comments, which is lovely to see because it means I'm not just going to be talking to myself. And like that, this is more of a test run just to see how I'm going. A few people have been saying maybe about doing a live. Obviously, all of the videos so far have been pre-recorded, and I thought, well, let's give it a go. So, I do have sort of a base plan of what I'll maybe talk about, but I am primarily going to be led by you guys in the comments. So get your comments in. What do you want to talk about? I'm obviously a United fan, but I am aware there's going to be some people with us that are not United fans, so I don't want to completely dominate the chat with just United so that nobody else feels welcome. Um, but really, I'm going to start off with the topic I had in mind, and then you can tell me if that's something you want to talk about or if you want to go off on a complete tangent. We're probably going to do maybe 30 minutes as a maximum. I know there's going to be some European football at 8 o'clock, and I don't want to keep people from the football, as really that's what we're all here for. My team's not going to be in it, so it's not something I have to think about, but I definitely know some of you guys will want to watch it. So it's going to be maybe 30 minutes max. I'm not going to bore the life out of you, and just let me know how you are feeling, what you want to know. I suppose the theme I had in mind for the show, and really the reason that I decided to do a first live show, is obviously a lot of you know me from the Football Terrace. Terry is recently doing his series Killing the Game, and for those of you that don't know, I have recently developed a little bit of an obsession with ice hockey. And so I'm going to explain to you how those two things are now related in my brain, because it's a little bit of a funny one. But essentially, it made me think about the reasons that we fall in love with a sport. What are the things that make us decide this is a sport for us, this is a team for us, this is what we want to support and follow and spend an awful lot of our time and money doing? And what are the things that maybe make us decide that we don't like it anymore, that it's not the sport for us, that we don't love it the same way we did? And really what I came to was sort of like, is the game we love still the game we love? Because the thing that I'm enjoying at the moment about ice hockey is it's really fast paced. There's a lot of physicality. It's very end to end. It's very exciting. It's an exciting game. And that's really the things that I fell in love with football. You know, when I think of my favourite players, my favourite, like the first people that come to my mind are like Roy Keane, or they're Vidic, Nemanja Vidic, you know, and you're seeing the theme there, like a physical sort of player is a physical sort of a team, a physical sort of a sport. That's what I really, really enjoy. And obviously, some of that has been taken away from football in recent years. Now, to an extent, that was probably good, health and safety and all the rest of it. But sometimes I do wonder a little bit if we've gone too far. So, kind of the broad topics I had in mind were the likes of VAR, the way that the rules are being interpreted these days, just that sort of a thing about the changes in football over the years, maybe from we very first started supporting to what we're seeing now. So let me know what you think. Now, please do bear in mind, this is my first live stream. You're over here, so if you see me looking over in this direction, it's because I'm reading what you guys are saying so I can try and answer it instead of just babbling to myself. So, hello everybody. I see lots of familiar faces and names in the chat. Thank you so much. Yous are all fantastic. This yous have all saved me from being highly embarrassed and just sitting here on my own on a live stream. So thank you everybody. Shout out to Guess. Guess is a very good friend of mine. I know some of you won't know her because she's not on some of the channels you guys be on that I know you from, but Guess is a very good friend of mine, so please be nice to her. Oh, I see all the lovely names and all the lovely faces. You're all fantastic. Thank you very, very, very much. Now, let me go back because I've seen Patrick, so I know I'm going to talk about Patrick in a minute because he always has something good to say. Yes, yes, Guess. Get the tackles in, get the feet in. Never mind stopping the game for silly rubbish. It's fine. Yes. So Patrick is correct. I feel like the referees have a lot to do with the pacing and physicality of the Premier League games, and I absolutely completely agree, and thank you for wording that so well when I was babbling. But yes, like I think sometimes, you know, often, and I never would have done this years ago, but I find myself now pre-game I'm checking who the referee is, which is insane because I shouldn't care who the referee is, because it really just shouldn't matter, to be quite honest with you. They should be refereeing the game the same way no matter who it is. In fact, the referee should be almost anonymous. We shouldn't know the referees in the same way that we know the players. Like that's insane to me. And they absolutely control the tempo of the game and how the game runs. And it's a case of, I think sometimes, and maybe this is a little bit mean, but I think sometimes they make it about themselves. The game ends up being about the referee, the referee's decisions, the VAR decision, what calls, and it's not really actually about the players and what's happened. And I think that's like you're losing a little bit there. Do you know what I mean? We should never be talking about the referees. We shouldn't even know their name. They should blend into the background. I'm one of those, I like to let things go unless you really have to stop. I think just let it flow, because most things do sort of even themselves out over the game. And I think when you start trying to police absolutely everything, you end up then stopping the game every 2 minutes. And if you keep stopping it that often, the next thing we're going to end up with bloody ad breaks in the middle of the half and everything, because we're just stopping all the time anyway. So it would be nice if the referees took a bit of a step back and said, look, do I actually need to step in here? So that is something that has been bothering me massively. I'm glad some of you have been feeling the same way. And again, I'm just going to go back over. I'm going to get smoother at this over time. I'm going to be able to just read the comments, talk to you. You're not even going to know I'm doing it. But for right now, it's going to be very obvious and probably a little bit clunky. So you'll have to bear with me. But we'll get there. We'll get there as a team. Yes, Patrick. So recently we got the benefit of this when the game wasn't stopped for a head injury. And in fairness, considering he ended up wearing the swimming cap for the whole rest of the match, that was in fact a genuine head injury. Although he did seem to have recovered by last night. There was no trace of his swim cap. He was perfectly fine by last night. But yes, and I think that's something that's happening as well, because we're seeing the referees getting more and more involved in the game. They're stopping the games more. We're protecting the players more and more. And we're sort of like, we're wrapping them in bubble wrap almost. And I understand, look, these are elite professionals. They're at the height of their sport. You know, they don't want to be breaking down every few minutes. There does have to be some sort of health and safety for the players. But I feel personally that we've gone a little bit too far. We're mollycoddling them. We're not actually just letting them play the game. And I think, you know, like when you have kids and they get sick and then they like, it builds up their immune system essentially. But if you never let them go outside and you never let them mix with other people and then they get sick, it's actually a lot more severe. That's what I feel a bit like we're doing with the players. Do you know, they're injuring themselves, but we're mollycoddling them. So every tiny little thing is actually becoming something really, really big. And they're getting actually, I think, more major injuries the more we mollycoddle them, because they're not able to, their bodies aren't built to deal with anything anymore. So I think that does become a bit of a problem. Let me see. I see Delroy in there. Some of your names have ats and some of them are normal. So obviously I recognize most of your names anyway, but I'm sure that's Delroy in there. So let me just, that one's longer than a few words, so I'm going to have to pause to read that one. So Delroy says, 100% it's absolutely ridiculous. Anybody thinks if the way they do it in rugby would work in football, so the game still carries on while the player gets attention. I think that is a fantastic way to do it. I love rugby like that. Again, another physical sport where the players are just allowed to play, the game is allowed to run, and there's just not so many pauses, because I feel like sometimes the players lose the momentum on the pitch, but I feel like as a fan sometimes you can lose the momentum. It's the same as like when your team's on the up and it gets to half time, or like when the season's just starting to get going and then you hit an international break. You know, sometimes the game is just starting to get exciting, we're clashing a little bit, things are happening, and then the referee's there and you're like, did you really need to say anything? Trusted. If United were dominating football, would you care about ice hockey? Yes, I've fallen in love, Trusted. And the good thing is, like, I'm primarily watching the NHL, which most of the time is starting at midnight because obviously it's a completely different time zone. So I would be able to watch my football and then go straight into my NHL. So I would never have to pick a favourite child. So yes, I would still keep watching it. But in fairness, I probably wouldn't have gotten into it sorry, just bear with me just a moment. Flossie, you are a mod now, so if you could take care of our special guest, that would be wonderful. Sorry, I've completely lost my train of thought there because I've just seen a special friend in the chat. How do I feel about the refereeing in Europe in comparison to the Premier League? There seems a marked difference between the two. There really does. There really does. And I think that's very difficult, actually, not only for a fan, but for the players, because when there's a certain expectation in the Premier League, even though we give out about it and it's a bit higgledy-piggledy and all over the place, but you kind of more or less know what to expect. As I said, you're looking at who's the referee going to be before the game, and you do generally know what to expect from that referee. I find in Europe, and I don't know if it's just me, they seem a little bit softer. Like they give things quicker, like you get free kicks quicker, you get more yellow cards, but I do find them an awful lot more consistent. So if we could get the consistency they have in Europe with a bit of a more laissez-faire approach, I would like that. And I would be interested maybe in having more European referees in the Premier League, because it has to be a drastic difference when you're playing one way on the weekend and then you're going to Europe in the week, if your team's lucky enough to be there, and they're having to play a completely different way because they're playing to a different standard and a different set of rules. What I do like is that it's more standardized. All of the referees are on the same page and they more or less make the same decisions, the same calls, and hold the same standards. What that does tell me, though, is that it is entirely possible to get all the referees to the same standard. So it does make you ask the question, why are we not able to do it in the Premier League? If they can do it in Europe, it's possible, so why can we not do it here? I mean, it's not as if we haven't been trying. I personally would probably want to separate the VAR and the referees. I feel like they're very friendly and it's hard to tell your friend off. Like I worked for a very large retailer, multinational retailer, and one of their rules was if you were promoted to management, you could no longer work in the store that you had worked previous to being promoted. So when I became a manager, I moved to another store, and their thinking was it's very, very difficult to manage people when you've been peers with them for a length of time because it's a completely different dynamic. And I do think that's part of the problem we have with VAR and the referees. They're very friendly, they work together, they know each other, they're hanging out, they're having dinner together, they're having their Christmas party's going to be together. It's very difficult to then say, do you know what, you got that wrong, sorry. And there was a match the other day, someone will be able to tell me who it was, I completely forget, but there was a match the other day and VAR asked the referee to go and look at the monitor and make a decision. It might have been the Crystal Palace match. Twisted will be able to tell me. And the referee went to the VAR monitor and said, you know what, no, I agree with my original decision, this is why. And he gave a very clear explanation why he was sticking to the original decision. And I thought that was really good, but it's not something I think we see often enough, to be honest with you, because a lot of the time I think the referee feels like, oh, well, if they've told me I need to look at it, then obviously I've got it wrong and I must change my mind. But for him to look at it and go, no, I still think I made the right decision, I think we should see more of. And I think we don't see it often enough because people are friends. They don't want to call out their friends and say, no, I actually like my decision. I don't need your input. So I thought that was very brave. I would like to see more of that. And I didn't know that referee's name, so he's not in the clique. So maybe that's why he felt comfortable enough to be able to do that. Rob, Always United, I do agree with you. I don't feel like the Premier League referees are very well trained. I think the guy that's supposed to be in charge of them and therefore in charge of their training is too busy doing his segment every week and making excuses for them. And he should actually spend less time on the TV and more time organising better training for his staff, would be my take on that one. So I totally agree with that. Let me see. Yeah, they're all just chatting away. They're just all wee friends. I actually just feel like we're having just a wee chat among friends, and you can see me and I can sort of see you, and we're just having a bit of a natter. So it's nice because I was getting a wee bit nervous now before I started. As you all know, I do like to talk, but I was getting a wee bit nervous. So it's nice just to have all the familiar faces and to see that everybody is interacting. Again, if there's anything, if you want to go on a complete tangent, I don't care. It doesn't have to stay with VAR or anything like that. I just obviously had a bit of a topic to start off with in case nobody joined and I still had something to talk about, but I'm happy to talk about absolutely anything you want to. They should play on and come back to the foul and yellow cards when play is stopped. Stuart, I completely agree. That's what they do in hockey. What they basically do is they call the foul and they say, okay, there's going to be a delayed foul, is what they call it. The play continues on, and then they come back for the foul. I think that's a great idea. It seems to really, really work for them. I think we should be doing it. I think we should be open to looking at not necessarily hockey or rugby or a specific sport, but I do think we should be open to looking at the things that are working elsewhere and see, can they be implemented into our game. But really a big part of it is, like what Patrick said, they can do it in Europe, so why can't they do it here? Why are we not looking at that? Why can we not do like workshops? Is there like, in school you do like an exchange? Can we not just exchange, send some of our referees over there, I would suggest Anthony Taylor, can we not just send some of them over there for an exchange in Europe, bring some of their referees over here, like wife swap, and see, can they learn off each other? I would also say, who did I see? Rastastocks asked me how long I have been supporting United. So, I have supported United for as long as I can remember. Some of you know this, but not everybody. My granddad actually founded a football club here in the town I'm from in Ireland, and it's been going for over 60 years. So basically he met my granny, and he wasn't from here, he moved here and he was working here, and he found that there wasn't a lot of things even back then for the youths to be doing in the town, and he was very, very much into his football, and he said, well, I'll start this football team. So himself and my granny's brother started a football team here in Dundalk in Ireland, still going. And now my granddad was a Liverpool fan, so that's not where I got United from, but it is where I got football from. And so I remember even growing up all those years later, they bought all of the kits, so that all the guys that maybe didn't have the money to afford the kits, my granddad just bought them all. And so every week my granny would have like 5, 6 lines of washing out, and it would be all of the football kits, and all you would hear was her cursing all the football and all the kits. So I very much grew up around football, around grassroots football, seeing, what goes into making a club work, and starting from the ground up. So it was a really wonderful experience. And then it was my dad that was the United fan. So between my dad and my granda, I was very much, I think, always going to be into football. I don't really think that was ever going to be my choice, but my dad got the casting vote on my team. So as long as I can remember, I've been a United fan. But one of my like earliest memories are like, do you know when you create those core memories, the ones that stick with you, is the treble. Like I remember Solskjaer coming on, I remember the goals, I remember jumping up and down on the sofa. And I think when you like live a moment like that with a team, I don't think you've any choice. I think they've indoctrinated you for life then. So I could never leave them, even after everything they've put me through for the last decade or two. But they're stuck with me and I'm stuck with them. So I'm hoping we're going to be on the up and up sometime soon. Let me have a little look. Yes, it is a nice story. It makes me happy. I think some refs want to take the headlines, Lou. They have big egos. Stuart, they do. They do. They have big egos, and I think more and more so. I think as the games become more televised, as the audiences get bigger, as they're on more streaming platforms, as there's more eyes on them, I think more and more and more they're going, I can get the headline here. Like I can make a bit of extra money out of this. I'll be able to sell an interview down the line. I'll be able to do a tell-all book in the future after I retire. I think everybody is now thinking about, okay, football is not a forever career. So if you need something to do after it, like when the money stops flowing, and look, referees obviously aren't paid the same way as players, but when the money stops flowing, you've become accustomed to a certain type of lifestyle. I think then they're kind of thinking, okay, what next? And just to note, like the average person, so normal people like us, but like normal jobs, the average person has 3 different careers in their lifetime now, whereas obviously many years ago it would have been one. You went into a job and it was like a job for life. Do you know that phrase, a job for life? There's no such thing as a job for life anymore. The average person goes through 3 careers in their lifetime. So I think now the likes of footballers and referees are now starting to think, okay, well, after football, what do I do? And there's almost planning ahead for it. And I think so many of these referees that we see, like Michael Oliver and some of the others, we're going to be seeing tell-all books coming down the line. I think in the next 10 to 15 years, when these guys are no longer involved in football, all the books are going to come out, all the interviews are going to be happening. They're already thinking of the next step. And so I think to be able to do that, they need to get the spotlight on themselves now, so that when they come out with their book or their interview or whatever it is they're going to do, people know who they are. They're already building this persona in the public eye. So I think they're definitely trying to drag the eyes onto themselves more and more and more. Thank you very much, guests, for taking out the rubbish. I very much appreciate it. Now I do apologise if I say your name terribly. YouTube has given me all the ats instead of the actual usernames. So I'm going to try with Lavanya. We don't really have a set topic because it's my first ever live. We're just sort of talking about the evolution of football over the years, what drew you to football, what made you fall in love with football, what are the things that maybe you wish would go backwards a little bit, what are the things that maybe, what changes do you enjoy, what do you think has gotten better over the years? Because we do, in fairness, often tend to look at what maybe has gotten worse, and I think there are a lot of things that have gotten worse. But are there things that we think have gotten better? What do we think is better now that we didn't have before? Oh, I'm so glad I pronounced that right. I actually, now, not that it means I can pronounce all the words, but I was actually at a beautiful wedding in India a few years ago, and so they taught me how to pronounce some of the words, so maybe that helped. Maybe it was in there and I just didn't know about it. Welcome, Ultra. I see you joining us. But yeah, guys, if there's anything that you prefer, like I know for me, and this is something I've probably mentioned before, some of you might know this, I don't like the offside. The offside drives me crazy, because for me, like the purpose of the offside rule was like that no one had an unfair advantage. I am sorry, if your toe hair is offside, you don't have an unfair advantage, and really we should be, favouring the attacker, because we want goals in games. Why wouldn't we? We watch it. I know football is a sport, but we watch it to be entertained. It's entertainment. So I want to see goals. So if your toenail or the hair on the top of your toe is offside, I actually don't really care. Unless you're like 6 foot in front of him, you're not really getting an advantage. So what I would like to do is, the way when they draw the lines basically to see if they're offside, I would like to thicken it a little bit. So like, okay, well maybe if your whole foot's offside, that's it, you're right. What do you guys think on that? Like, I understand, at least with the offside, they draw the line, you're offside, you're onside, but I think the line's too thin. I would just widen it a little bit and make it, just to maybe get back to what it was supposed to be for, because I think we've got so stuck on this is the rule, this must be the rule, we're so stern about the rule, but we've actually lost the spirit of what the rule was supposed to be about. So what do you guys reckon to that one? I love the new Wenger offside rule. Wenger's really on one lately. I wanted to ask you about Man United. What do you feel about my comment when I say Bruno is a performing member of the bomb squad? If no, then he isn't when the bomb squad in the first place. Real football. I'm going to be controversial. I wasn't expecting to be this controversial on my very first live stream, but I'm not a fan of Bruno Fernandes. I have actually asked this question on the United stand-up mark, is Bruno part of the bomb squad? The reason I asked the question is because I feel like he is. And I'm just going to get so much hate. I can just feel it already. There's going to be so many people commenting like, she's wrong, she's a dope. But let me explain before you go in on me. So I did a video when I first started the channel about Bruno. There's Bruno the person, there's Bruno the player, there's Bruno the captain. Bruno the person seems absolutely lovely. He seems like a really, really nice chap. He clearly gets on with most of the players. You don't really see any like nasty nonsense with him. He seems like a really nice guy. Bruno the captain, not a fan. He's not the captain for me. I don't like his leadership style. Not for me. But really what we're looking at is Bruno the player. And I see Ultra. I'm sorry, Ultra. I know you're not going to enjoy this part, but get your comments in. Disagree with me all you like. Go for it. My thing with Bruno is when he arrived, he was fantastic. He rejuvenated our whole team. He carried us for his first 2 seasons. He was really brilliant. And I do not take anything away from what Bruno has given to the team and to the club in a time when we really, really did need it. But Bruno now, I think he's distracted. I think he's petulant. And I know he's being played out of position, which is not his fault, but he doesn't stick to that position anyway. He's in everyone else's position. He's missing penalties. He's missing, like, really goals he should be scoring. I just think Bruno's time is finished. And I have a problem with someone who is actively, publicly, repeatedly on social media supporting people that have undermined our club and our managers and our fans. And I completely understand that some people love Bruno and that they're very grateful to him and they think he's a fantastic player. And I have no qualms with anyone that feels that way. It's just not my opinion. I think I'm very grateful for everything he's given us, but for me, his time is done. So I know that one's controversial. I wasn't planning to get into it this early, but thank you very much for your question, because if nothing else, it's going to give a lot of people things to say. Ultra, yes, there's a lot of people that think Bruno is a fantastic number 10 and that the problem is he's being played out of position and that actually it's Amram that's causing the problems. So there's the other side of it. It's completely possible. Yes, bored Dave boy. That's another thing. When he came out, it was Yarrow he came out about, like, oh, that was his fault. Sorry, not for me. Not for me. I just don't think that's good leadership. But look, if we all thought the same thing, it would be very boring. Now, let me see. I saw something that's not about United, so I'm going to talk about that because I know you aren't all United people there, and I don't want to bore the life out of you. So, let me see. Being a Liverpool fan, Lavanya. Being a Liverpool fan, I only like and admire Maguire from United ever. I probably wouldn't go quite that extreme, but Harry Maguire is the man of the moment. And what I will say about Harry Maguire, considering we're talking about our captains, they're our current one and our former one, we've got a theme going on here. I think from Harry Maguire has had the captaincy taken off him, I feel like he's just been set free. He's like a completely different player. And I think we've seen more leadership from Harry Maguire since the captaincy was stripped off him than we did in the whole time he was the captain. What I will say is his mentality is absolutely elite. Whether you rate him as a player, whether you think he should be sold, whether you think we should be like not offering him a new contract, I don't think any of us can really question his mentality because he was dragged over the hot coals. He was publicly stripped of his captaincy. The amount of abuse, and I don't use the word abuse all the time because I don't think criticism is abuse, but he got abuse. And he just put his head down and he worked hard and he turned it around. And I've never been so happy to see somebody on like their little arc back into, like, you know, being respected again. So I think it's been lovely. I would keep him for another year, but if we decided to let him go, I would totally understand that point of view as well. But yes, I do think that, yes, Madball, Lou is live. But I really think that he deserves an awful lot of respect for what he's done. Let me see. Yeah, after Sunday contract for Lord Harry. I mean, just give him a crying. I don't mind. Knight him. Is he knighted? Just knight him. Give me the sword. Who else? I saw something else I wanted to see. I saw something about Isak, although I'm not sure if we want to talk about Isak. We talked about him a lot in the summer. I don't know, I kind of like not talking about him. Do I reckon Isak and Wirtz will come to their prior perfect form? I think it is impossible to know, to be honest. Now, this is going to be the last thing I talk about because it's nearly 8 o'clock. Everybody's going to be going to watch the Europa League and I'm not going to keep you. So I'm going to end on this one, and thank you all very much for being here. Please hit a like if you've liked it. Please hit a like if you didn't like it, just so I feel better about myself. What I will say about both Isak and Wirtz, it's very difficult to know because there was a lot of changes made to a winning squad, including a manager. Do you know what I mean? So the Klopp switch over, and then the number of first team and regular players that they switched over, I think the whole team is disjointed, not just those two players. And I think if the team starts to get into a rhythm, we might see more from those players. But sometimes we just get a surprise. And I think this season for Liverpool, Ekitike has been the surprise package. And I think he's been absolutely phenomenal. So I think we should focus on him instead of Isak and Wirtz. Listen, I'm going to let you all go, lads. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for making me feel so comfortable. Enjoy the football, and hopefully we will do this again soon.